Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Stages of Sound, or welcome to Stages of Sound if you haven't been here before. My name... What?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
I thought you screwed it up again. I was preemptively ready
Well,
to
now I
correct
screwed
you.
it up because you corrected me in the middle of it.
I screwed it up.
My name is
apologies.
Mackenzie, and this is...
Jack.
And we're talking about video
Mario
game
Kart.
music. Oh, okay.
Video
We're
game
jumping
music
right
broadly,
into it.
you know. So what are we talking about today, Mackenzie?
Doom Eternal.
Hell yeah. Now, I've never heard that soundtrack before, so we're
Me
just going to go off
neither.
the vibes.
All right,
Overall,
Doom
it was
Eternal
pretty
episode
good.
over. Now it's time for Mario Kart.
Yeah, baby.
So-
Mario Kart.
This was kind of like a not the word is not sleeper pick, but it was like a kind of like an offhand like whatever, we'll do a Mario Kart episode because like it's Mario Kart. It's got
Yeah,
good music.
I mean, like, I was sort of interested to study it a little deeper because, like, you know, we've all heard Mario Kart music, right?
Yeah.
I
If
would
you
venture
think-
that everybody listening to this has probably played Mario Kart.
If
Or
you-
if not everybody,
well,
like 90% of people.
And like even if you haven't played Mario Kart, you've heard Mario Kart music in like the background music of a streamer that you watch or something, you know? Like it's
Yeah.
just ubiquitous. It's everywhere.
But is it ubiquitous because it's good? Shall
Yeah.
we find out?
I think it is good. I think it's really
Yeah,
good.
I agree.
So what I've
I
done
would want to note,
sure. Sorry, go on.
before we start, I want to note that a lot of my research going into this was on Mario Kart 8,
Mhm.
and I'll be bringing a decent amount of knowledge in from the other games as well, just because I've been around the video game music sphere for a while, so I've heard the other game soundtracks. But like the dedicated study was on Mario Kart 8, so I've got most of the stuff to say about that.
Yeah, and I'll say all of what I'm talking about is related to Mario Kart 8 and Mario Kart Wii because that's just what I'm familiar with. I unfortunately
we should start with that actually. Which of the Mario Kart games have you played, Mackenzie?
just Wii and 8.
Really,
yeah.
just those two?
I never had it. I never had 7, and I never had DS. And I never
7 was
owned
probably the
any
one I
other
played the
systems.
most.
Okay.
So, yeah, I played DS, 7, a little bit of Double Dash, but very little. A little bit of 64, and then Wii and 8 I've played, but I don't own 8 either.
Well, I've played 64 and Double Dash in the sense that like a friend had it and I played it for like 10 minutes or
Yeah,
something, but not
hey,
enough
that
to really
still
kind
sorta
of like,
counts.
but
Get a
not
grip
enough.
on the music,
yeah,
yeah.
exactly. No, not to really understand how it works in any meaningful way. To
Makes
be honest,
sense.
I don't really know how they work in the games that I have played extensively. So
Yeah, fair enough. Well, we can start off with like. Honestly, I sort of wanted to open with this is the classic example of a Mario Kart song that I think works really well, and that's Mario Stadium from Mario Kart 8.
okay,
Like,
sure.
you know-
That's the first track, right?
Yes, the very first track, and it's also like technically the main menu track, I believe. I'm not 100% on that, but I'm pretty sure it is.
Don't know.
Uh,
Maybe.
Fairly certain. It's like the main theme of Mario Kart 8, essentially, and
Sure.
I think they did a perfect job with it because Mario Kart 8 is a little distinct, both in terms of racing games and in terms of Mario Kart games, in that it's very, very
Yes.
big band, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for
Like,
sure. Especially,
you
I think
would-
they
you
really
would-
lean into that in Mario Kart 8 for sure.
Like, you know, they have lots of variety in the soundtrack, but like Mario Stadium, their main theme is like the epitome of big band. Right?
Yeah.
And can you go into a little more what big band in particular means? as
Oh,
opposed to, like,
sure.
other sounds?
It's like kind of the standard instrumentation for like what a modern jazz ensemble looks like, or a jazz orchestra, I guess I should say. So you've got like a section of saxophone, section of trumpets, section of trombones, as well as a rhythm section where you get your like piano, bass, guitar, and various other percussion and drums.
Yeah.
So
So it's not
it's
like
think like Bob on Battlefield or something like a when you think of loud, fast jazz, like that's the kind of
Yeah,
standard
like-
example.
jazz you don't even necessarily immediately identify as jazz, but that still has that sort of rough instrumentation. Yeah.
Did you ever play in like a jazz band, Jack?
I did, a little bit. I was never like a huge fan of it. I preferred
Okay.
more classical music, but I did play some jazz band. I only played trumpet for like 4 years, 5 years, so yeah.
Yeah, well, I never got to play in any jazz ensembles or anything like that, but I used to kind of be a jazz hater, but I've warmed up to it, you know? Like,
Yeah.
being a clarinetist, I don't have a lot of options to, like, play it. Well, there are, but not like as a standard member of a band.
Yeah,
like that, but.
and especially not like a big band like this sort of environment
Yeah,
is not
exactly.
clarinet friendly.
Well,
I'd
there
say,
are
yeah.
clarinets, but usually as like gimmick instruments or
Themed
solos.
instruments.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's great.
yeah.
I think it's really cool, and it really exemplifies kind of the 30s through 50s sort of thing. You know, 20s.
Really interesting.
Yeah, it was a big deal in the 20th century for sure.
Because then they were like melding modern sounds with the traditional sounds of the day as well.
Well, and more recently jazz has kind of flown off the rails a little bit. You get like jazz fusion, you get like math jazz, you get like a bunch of crazy stuff. Yeah.
So big band is like a little more traditional jazz. So it's a little more
from today's standards,
broad audience.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, and in that regard, I think Mario Stadium is just a phenomenal piece overall.
Sure.
I would say, in general, Mario Kart 8's soundtrack is at its best when it is leaning into the big band nature of it, because it really feels like that's like the center of this soundtrack.
It's
and
a
when they're
clear
leaning
core.
into it, it goes great. Yeah, and another song that's like that, for example, is Dolphin Shoals, right?
Yes, okay, so the way I kind of approach this episode is I have like a top 10 list, but in no particular order, so I'm good to talk about them.
I see. Sure. I've already dug into mine a little bit because I actually had Mario Stadium as my 6th favorite Mario Kart track song.
Okay.
Because I think like it's unspectacular. No, that's not true. It's unsurprising, but that doesn't make it unspectacular. I think
it's a great like kind of standard.
Yeah, like you're comparing every other song to it, and it's holding itself up alongside them, if that makes sense. So I think it does its job perfectly.
For sure. Well, it does its job as a first level, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because those are supposed to set the tone that you're expecting for the rest of the soundtrack.
But I mean, going on Dolphin Shoals here, we couldn't get through this episode, I'm sure, without talking about Dolphin Shoals. It's fantastic.
I have Dolphin Shoals as my number 7.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I don't have it ranked, but I have it on my top 10. Vaguely. If I had more time to think about it, I might rearrange it a little bit.
This ranking is loose anyway. I could replace it day by day. So yeah.
Dolphin Shoals is great, and the sax solo is phenomenal. Obviously, like it's everywhere. People talk about it. People use the Mario Kart lick. It is just from Dolphin Shoals. Like it's great. And that track is also a really good example of dynamic music.
Because when you go underwater, the track like fades out a little bit, right?
The sax solo doesn't play when you're underwater.
And so okay, well when you put it like that, then it just seems like sad,
No, but it works really well because when you're under the water, it's like more mellow and kind of groovy, right? And then you kind of jump off of like the back of that eel.
And the sax picks up.
And then it just like comes roaring in with this like huge fast solo because by that point it's developed to the point that the solo's kind of going bananas, right?
Interesting.
It's
so
really
it's sort
cool.
of meant to be structured in the level that the solo picks up midway through. That's really interesting.
Yeah, no, I love that track, and I think it's really, really well done. Very, very classic. Not classic Mario Kart, but classic Mario Kart 8 for sure.
Yeah, like it epitomizes the strengths of this soundtrack, I think, in much the same way that Mario Stadium does. But like it's going even funkier and even jazzier with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whereas the Mario Stadium leans a little further into like the big band aspect and not so much the jazz. Overall, Dolphin Shoals is probably like among the most recognized Mario Kart songs, I think, in the modern day at least.
Oh yeah. I think people know the Mario Kart lick like beyond knowing about the Mario Kart music. I think there are people that would recognize pieces of Dolphin Shoals without knowing the track itself.
Yeah, without knowing what it's from.
Fantastic. I think that's really funny.
I love the percussion and bass in that track as well. I think like overall it's super well constructed jazz. I'm a huge fan. We can just like start going through our list.
Sure, yeah.
I'll go through a couple
like,
songs.
On the number 4
point.
But again, it's not ranked. It's just kind of listed.
Right. I want to go through a couple ones that aren't on my top 10s.
Sure.
Just like some tracks that I wanted to discuss a little bit.
All right.
Cloud Top Cruise.
Oh, I forgot about that one.
Cloud Top Cruise is great.
Yeah.
Asterisk.
It's just Gusty Garden.
I was gonna say until it gets to Gusty Garden and Sky Station, it's phenomenal. They nail the atmosphere, and then they just transition into Gusty Garden. Wow, you have a great thing going. That's exactly what it feels like. But before that, the original melody was so cool.
It's good. And it captures the atmosphere really well. And again, really, really good example of dynamic music. When you go into the storm, the electric guitar picks up. It's really well orchestrated. I think it's fantastic.
And then it's just Gusty Garden again.
Yeah.
Wow. Why would you do that?
Because Gusty Garden's a really good melody, Jack.
I'm not
Are you hating?
disagreeing with that.
Are you a hater?
But, Megalovania is a great song, and we saw what happened when that got played in every single song in the universe
All right,
for the past 5 years.
What I've learned from this experience is that Mario Kart should have used Megalovania in Cloud Top Cruise. Moving on.
I'm not disagreeing with that. Hell yeah, dude, it'd be funny. I'm a fan.
Imagine if you just go into the storm and it's like ba 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 ba.
Absolutely.
So stupid.
Please do. I would want it no other way. Okay, so That's stupid tangent aside.
Mhm.
Cloud Top Cruise, great. Love the guitar. Love the atmosphere it sets.
Yeah.
Couple other songs. Do you want to go over like the crossover songs that they've done? Because I have two of the crossover songs are in my top 10, but I'll save those for after.
Remixes of previous games, you mean?
No, I meant like how they've included characters from other franchises into Mario Kart.
I don't have any of those, but I know like Hyrule Circuit, for example.
Yeah, they've got the main ones that are there are there's an F-Zero stage, there's a couple F-Zero stages, Splatoon, Animal Crossing, and The Legend of Zelda.
Do they have a Splatoon stage?
They have a Splatoon battle stage, which is a bit of a shame.
I had no idea. I never touched
They
those.
do have that. Have you not? Okay, we'll start with that. It's Urchin Underpass from Splatoon 1.
Cool. I guess that makes sense using it as a battle arena. I wish they had a. What if there was like an Inkopolis like racetrack? That would be sick.
Yeah, wouldn't that be awesome? Anyway, we're gonna move on from that, so I don't make myself sad.
Oh, damn.
Well, except I'm still gonna make myself sad because I am a Splatak hater. I think Splatak is like the iconic track of Splatoon, for better or for worse. It's like the
Okay, so it's the one that people use when they use Splatoon in like trailers or whatever. Yeah, sure.
Yes, exactly. It's fine, but like it is Splatoon vocals at their worst, and I like the Splatoon soundtracks. Sometimes I think the Splatoon soundtracks are great, but here, and like I said, I don't hate the bass melody, and I don't hate like the instrumentation that they've gone with. But Splatak is one of the weaker songs in Splatoon, in my opinion, and the vocals are grating, both for people that like Splatoon and who don't like Splatoon.
Well, Splatoon vocals, it's hit or miss, man. Like some days I'm like, it's fine. Other days I'm like, I don't like how that sounds. You know what I mean? Like, just
I mean, I agree. Yeah.
The squid singing, I could do without it most of the time.
But the problem is, this isn't even like squid singing. I know we're getting maybe a little too into Splatoon here, but it matters for Urchin Underpass. This isn't even like the squid bubbly singing. It's just like a really weird, distorted fish voice. And it doesn't sound good.
Fish voices.
And it doesn't sound good, and it doesn't sound that interesting. It's just sort of weird and awkward, and like when the main melody isn't that strong to begin with, I would have preferred if they went with something like City of Color or Ink Me Up from Splatoon 1, because they're working with Splatoon 1 stuff here. That was the only thing that was out when this came out. And I get that Splatak is the iconic thing, but it's not my favorite.
Mario Kart 8 is getting old, dude.
It is.
That's crazy.
It came out on the Wii U, and the Wii U is getting old. But the one cool thing that I'll give Urchin Underpass is that as much as I don't like the Splatak part of it, they do have a Now or Never in there when you do hit the 1 minute mark in a battle.
Okay.
Which is cool.
That's kind of sick. Does it come up when you hit 1 minute left, like in the Mario Kart battle? I don't know how Mario Kart battles work.
I'm not 100% sure. The battles are timed. Maybe it's like when the last person is left, because it's like, duels and people get knocked out.
It depends. Mario Kart battles have different game modes, I think. So you have like the balloon, and then you have the coin collector one.
The coin battle, yeah. So it happens when you get closer to the end, regardless. Much like how Now or Never happens in Splatoon. It is cool. The problem is I also don't really like Now or Never very much.
Well, this just sounds like you're being a Splatoon hater, Jack.
Maybe I am. Maybe I am a hater of this voice specifically, because it's the same voice for Now or Never in this that it is in Splatak. And
I see. I think I can think of what you're talking about. Like not like the bubbly squid voice, but like a kind of like a distorted, like
wailing
voice.
Yeah.
I know what you're talking
it's like
about.
my least favorite type of Splatoon vocal. So yeah, I think Splatoon is done dirty in like every other property it's in besides itself, which is a bit of a shame. Everybody gets a bad impression of the music. It has a lot on offer. Maybe one day we'll make a Splatoon episode, and this won't be on it because it's bad. But they put effort into it, which I appreciate, I guess.
All right. 5 minutes of talking about Splatoon aside, Mario Kart.
it's in the Mario Kart. I'm talking about the track. I get you.
Yeah, I mean, other crossovers are like Hyrule Circuit, which is essentially just like Zelda main theme with guitar in it. Like, it's fine.
I will say, I do actually.
Special.
I thought that going in. That's what I'd remembered. I actually do quite like the main Zelda theme in there that they use.
Okay.
They give it some new chords. They make it a little brighter and more, energetic, like it should be in a racing game. I think they do a good job with that. They also add like a flamenco guitar, like Gerudo Valley style.
Oh, really?
I think
I
that's
just remember like
really
the
fun.
lead like electric. That's cool.
Yeah, they've got like the more energetic Spanish sounds because if you think about it, the main Zelda theme is a little Spanish sounding already, right? I think maybe I'm just pulling that out of my ass, but
I guess
you get the idea.
So. I maybe.
Regardless,
sure. Yeah,
the flamenco guitar works really well in it. Now the worst part is that they also do just like throw Zelda's Lullaby in there, like 2/3 of the way through the song.
Oh yeah, and it's like fully on like lead electric guitar, isn't it?
Yeah,
That's
and
cool.
you know, I don't think Zelda's Lullaby is a great racing game song, personally.
You just got to make it fast and put it on lead electric guitar.
Except they didn't even make it that fast. They didn't do anything interesting with it. They just slapped it on the song.
It's pandering to the fans who are like, wow, it's Zelda in a Mario Kart game.
Yeah, this is almost sort of what they did with Cloud Top Cruise and Gusty Garden. Huh.
Funny
I wonder if
how
there's a trend
that
there in
works.
some way. Yeah.
Well, I'll dig into my list a little bit here.
Wait, hang on.
Oh God.
Oh no, wait, that's the end of the crossovers I don't have on my top 10.
Okay.
So you can move into your top 10. Go for
I
it.
think Moo Moo Meadows is a really nice track.
I also have that one on my
I
top
think
10.
it sounds really fun. It's just a nice little hoedown with like a guitar and like an Irish flute. It's just like a nice little. It's like you're racing through a cow pasture and people are having a party in the barn. You know? It's
Yeah.
great.
What I learned from my Galaxy episode, from our Galaxy episode, is that apparently I just like hoedown music. It brings me joy for some
like
reason.
the
Like Puzzle Plank.
Puzzle Plank, yeah, that's awesome.
So
Similar
like,
vibes,
I don't know.
for sure.
Exactly, and how do I put it? The Wii version and the 8 version are quite different. Like in the types of instrumentation they use. Which one did you listen to?
I listened to the Wii version, which I think is the one with like the Irish flute.
Yes, well, I think they both have
They
it.
probably
But
both do.
Moo Moo Meadows in 8, I like a little bit less sometimes, and some parts of it I like a little bit more.
Is it
because
kind of over orchestrated? Because I feel like that's often what Mario Kart 8 will do, is just make it a little bit more complex.
A lot of songs are like that. I don't think Moo Moo Meadows is like that. What they've done is they made the violin like really, really clearly not a MIDI. Like it's doing like it has really exaggerated notes that you wouldn't be able to get on a MIDI, and like it'll
Like, it's
stretch
very
out the
clearly,
previous
like, a
note
live
into the current
recorded
note.
solo. Yeah.
Exactly. And for the beginning part of it, like the dun, 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 I don't think it works quite as well. But as they get into the more energetic second part of the song,
Like
the violin.
that bit.
Yeah.
I see what you mean. Yeah.
I think when that pops off with a solo violin that's like going crazy with it, it works super, super, super well. And they also like, do the solo violin thing where they go even further than the bass melody already was and hit those nice harmonies in the back of it as well. And I think that works well for it. However, I would still like to say I like the Wii original probably as much because it keeps it more simple. Go for it.
Well, I just think usually the Mario Kart Wii soundtrack is fantastic. Like,
Yeah, absolutely.
it's hard to improve on it. I think it's really well done, and it's an example of how like kind of MIDI on the Wii is used really well too.
I thought that exact thing, yeah. Like, Moo Moo Meadows is the epitome of right before everything got orchestration, the MIDIs that were used there. And like I said in the Galaxy episode as well, I find that just very charming.
Yeah, it has a certain kind of energy to it. Yeah, I don't have much on my notes other than just like what a nice vibe, man.
Yeah, what's not to like about Moo Moo Meadows?
It's definitely the most memorable from that like first kind of area. Although I'm gonna pull another one from the first cup again. Of Mario Kart Wii, and that's Toad Factory, not Mushroom Gorge. Toad Factory.
Oh, I have totally forgotten what Toad Factory sounds like.
It's just like a nice little cool big band vibe. It starts with like some trumpets, and then it like goes into this like synthy kind of factory kind of sound. But the synthy factory sound is actually just like a piano put through like a low pass filter, so it sounds like it's being played over like a megaphone kind of thing. It's really
Interesting.
cool. Has like a really distinct energy, and it really like I don't know how to describe it other than just like the perfect mixture of racetrack and a factory, you know?
Because, I don't think they put Toad Factory into any other Mario Kart game.
No, and
so
God,
I would
wish
have had to
they
remember
would.
how it sounds in Wii.
I think, well, I almost don't want them to remix it because I think it's just really, really well done.
Well, yeah, I know a lot of people, like when Moo Moo Meadows got remixed, a lot of people had very mixed opinions of it, and even I
Right.
sort of do. But I think parts of it are better and parts of it are worse, so it evens out.
Sure.
and I imagine something similar would happen with Toad Factory.
Yeah,
Who knows?
but just, I mean, Toad Factory on its own, I think it's a fantastic track, and it works really well for what it's trying to accomplish.
They don't need to remix it.
The main kind of point for me was that like cool piano effect that they had. I thought it was just like, you don't really think about it when you're playing the game, but it's like, that's cool. It doesn't sound like a regular piano. It's put through like a few filters. It's really nice. I like it.
Yeah, nice. This might be a bit of a tangent, but I like factory music in video games. Do you know what I mean? Like when games get really creative with like the industrial sounds and the effects, factories
I'm thinking,
lead to really interesting soundtracks for sure.
What's the track from like Final Fantasy VI?
Oh, I don't think I know what you're talking about.
It's like the Devil's Laboratory or something. What's it called?
Chrono Trigger has a laboratory theme that's a factory theme that's really cool as well.
Is that the one when you get Robo?
Yeah, I think so. That one's sticking out in my brain. And then like another example is like Factory Inspection from Kirby 64.
I don't know that one.
You should listen to it. That's in my opinion, that's the most underrated Kirby song in general.
Well, industrial levels and stuff like that, there's a huge, it's almost cliche at this point, but there's this huge opportunity for playing with the percussion and kind of capturing those percussive effects. Like, oh, there's a hammer, you can use that as like a hammer anvil like beat, you know? You get like to the point that anvil is used as a percussion instrument so often. Like and like you just
like a hydraulic press slamming down
like,
is part of the percussion, yeah.
Like these tracks, you can start with like, what kind of industrial sounds can I use to build this beat? And then what can I build on top of that to kind of like really exemplify that kind of industrial sound? Toad Factory doesn't do that quite as much, but I know what you mean for sure.
Yeah, I'm just like, it sort of struck me that actually has a surprising amount of appeal, because when you think of factories, you think like, oh, they're all just sort of samey and grimy and unappealing, but musically there's a lot you can do, which is interesting. I'd never considered that before. And yeah, even like you say that it's not playing with the factory theme very much, but even just that low filter on the piano, it does the job to get that atmosphere across, right?
Yeah.
It probably was inspired by making a factory theme.
Low pass filter, so it like takes like the low part out of the sound, and it's like it's the effect that you put on someone's voice to make it sound like they're talking over a walkie-talkie or something.
Oh, and I mean, that's a very traditionally like factory thing to do, right?
Exactly.
Like, it's coming in through an intercom.
It literally sounds like it's being played over an intercom, and it's super cool. Yeah, I think it's really well constructed.
Nice. Okay, I can go through. Should I go through my top 10 list in order, or should I go in not order like you have it?
I've been going in kind of like random order, and we haven't even been going back and forth either. We've kind of just been
going.
What else is on there, Jack? Just grab one.
I like Music Park. I think Music Park does a good job. Of note, I don't think like the bass song itself is spectacular. I think it's just fine.
I think
by Mario Kart standards,
the way it plays with the gameplay is really cool for sure. It doesn't.
That's definitely the standout.
I'm not sure, because I know that when you go over like the xylophone, when you kind of drift over it, it plays like a chromatic scale going down. Does that play? Does that play with the soundtrack at all? Like, is the starting note? I wonder.
Yeah,
like,
it'll change depending on where you are in the track, and also when you're on your last lap, it also changes key to match the upped pitch of the the loops on the final lap.
Okay, good. Yeah. That's great.
And then also the like how when the music notes, the big obstacles jump up and down, they make like tones that
it's like a timpani hit, but like a really low timpani hit that like lands on the chord tone of the music. That's really sick.
Exactly. So it's probably a little hard to tell from the soundtrack that's going to be playing in the background here, but the way that it's used in game is super fun. It really brings you into the music themed atmosphere.
What more would you expect from a track that's called Music Park? Like they couldn't get away without playing with the soundtrack in a cool way. That's cool.
And
I love that.
I have it as my number 9 because like I don't particularly love the main melody or anything like that. The instrumentation is fine, but it is really the way that it's
just the way it
in
was
game that elevates
it. Like just as a bit of a, not really a tangent, but like a surprising number of our picks have been cool because of how they play with the gameplay and the setting. That's really sick. Like I kind of figured that like Mario Kart tracks would be a little bit removed from the gameplay because it's a racing game, right? You just kind of need like an energetic track, but so many of these engage with the player in such an interesting way. Like I love that. I think that's like a really cool attention to detail. Yeah.
That might be part of why when they just like take a theme again, it feels so disappointing because they're not engaging with that at all, if that makes sense. Like when they just replace Cloud Top Cruise, really nailing this atmosphere, and just throw Gusty Garden in there.
The only like relation is that you're in a place in the sky. It doesn't even look like Gusty Garden or Sky Station. You're just on a cloud with a Bowser ship or something. Like who cares?
Yeah. So that's interesting. I hadn't really considered that going in. But you're right, a lot of these sort of do interact with the way that you see them in game, even if it's not like adaptive music like Dolphin Shoals is. It's in. I mean, I guess Music Park is also adaptive music, but it's in the effects they use still, but with stuff like Toad's Factory.
Because it's definitely adaptive for like when you actually ride over the like mallet instruments, it'll like play the sounds. Yeah. But then there's like the like bouncing music notes, which it's adaptive in that you control where you are in the course,
and whether you can hear them.
And so once you drive by them, they get louder and they hit when they land, and only when you see them and when you're nearby them.
I would call that adaptive music, yeah.
And then there's also just like Mario Kart in general, especially like the more modern ones, just have really, really good attention to detail in their sound design. So this is kind of breaking away from the soundtrack itself, but it uses the Doppler effect, which, are you familiar?
How pitches increase or decrease depending on the relative velocity of two objects.
It's so sick. Like when you're listening to like the revving of engines or a horn, like the pitch is higher as it goes towards you and it gets lower as it goes away. Like I'm sure like audience, like if you've heard like a truck pass you on the highway, it like sounds like it's descending in pitch as it goes away from you just because of how sound waves work. And if it goes away from you, there's more distance between each of the waves, and so the pitch gets lower.
Yep, right? Because the sound waves are moving with, like, they have the velocity of the object they're being produced by. Yeah. So the wavelength coming towards you is inherently shorter than it is when it passes you. Yeah.
Love that. Very, very cool.
Love the sound design in Mario Kart.
That also just means that like the inner workings of that game is just so much more complex than you'd think, because it has to track where like all of your other racers are in order to play back the sounds that you're hearing. You know, like that's so makes sick.
When you hear that like a racing game is one of the best-selling games of all time, it sort of feels like, oh, well, does it even deserve that? It's just a racing game. But Mario Kart gets a lot of effort put into it, I think.
The other thing about Mario Kart and being like a well-selling game is that it's super accessible, you know? Like it was, I think probably, if not my first video game, one of my first video games was Mario Kart Wii. Just because like that's like the family game that you get on your first game console, you know? Yeah.
And anybody can enjoy it, for sure.
For sure.
Anyway, we should probably get back to the OST.
Back to the music.
This is all context for how, you can enjoy the music in game. The sound design certainly adds to it, and especially in something like Music Park, where it's all sort of feeding into each other.
Yeah. So one thing that Mario Kart does is they kind of reuse tracks from other games and remix them and like kind of modernize them, like as we were talking about with Moo Moo Meadows. And they also update the soundtrack. So what they did for N64 Rainbow Road, as it appears in Mario Kart 8, is really sick.
Interesting.
Do you not like it?
No, I like Rainbow Road in Mario Kart 64, and I also like it in Mario Kart 8, but to me they were pretty similar, right?
Not quite. So, okay, most of what changes is the instrumentation. But first off, the melody of that track is fantastic. Everyone knows it.
Undoubtedly,
it's so good. But in the N64 version, you kind of have this like flute synth that plays it.
That's definitely, and then it gets turned into the brass in the updated version.
So
right?
In the updated version, it actually starts with a snippet of that flute synth, but then it's immediately taken over by this like lead trumpet.
Really?
And it plays the first statement of the melody, and then it switches into like more full orchestration. It switches between like lead electric guitar and high brass. There's like a grooving like bass and drum line underneath, and like a bunch it's like a full orchestra playing it. Like there's strings and timpanis. It's great. I think it's a really, really good example of like a well done reorchestration of a previous track. Some of them are maybe hit or miss. I think this one in particular is really well done.
Yeah, I mean, just turning a flute melody into a brass melody is a big step to take overall, right? Like
it changes the energy for sure. Well, you got to think about what like a brass MIDI sound on an N64 would be like. It doesn't have the same energy. It's
very
hard
harsh
to capture that kind of like spacey tone. You can do that with a flute synth for sure. But that's something that you can do with the right orchestration with a trumpet solo.
Yeah, absolutely. For sure. Like a trumpet or a French horn, in particular, I think could pull that off. Absolutely. And they did really well for this.
Yeah. I think to take a track that's already so iconic and build on it and make it so much
in an interesting
fuller,
way.
I think it's a great example of that being done in a good way.
Yeah, which it isn't always. So when they nail it, they nail it. We got to give them credit. Okay. Actually, I had a topic I sort of wanted to bring up here, which is that your favorite version of Rainbow Road? Because there are lots of different Rainbow Roads. Which one is your favorite?
Just because that's the only one I can think of, really, I'd say it's N64. Maybe the reorchestration. I'm not sure, though. What do you think?
My cop-out would be Mario Kart 7, because that's my favorite version of that track, essentially. It combines the Double Dash and N64 versions together and elaborates on them in a very interesting way. The Mario Kart 7 version specifically does.
Yeah.
I also like the instrumentation a lot, and funnily enough, Mario Kart 8 also has Mario Kart 7 Rainbow Road in it, and I don't like that version quite as much, because, it's another version of basically the Mario 64 Rainbow Road.
Was that added in the DLC pass?
It was very recent, yeah.
Yeah, okay, I know.
I don't like that version quite as much. But the original quote-unquote, it's still remixing the N64 version from Mario Kart 7 is probably my favorite instrumentation of that.
Sure. Well, I think Rainbow Road is a really cool... Oh, sorry, go for it.
I'm not done.
All right, sorry.
Despite all that, like I said, I love the N64 version. But my favorite Mario Kart Rainbow Road is Mario Kart Wii's Rainbow Road.
Oh, that's a sleeper pick for sure.
I think Wii Rainbow Road is very different, and it's going for a different, like, more energetic, more lighthearted tone than the other Rainbow Roads. I think it works great for it.
It's got kind of that like shimmery synth in the background, right?
Yes, it's exactly what it has. It's very Mario Galaxy, which makes sense because that's what that version of Rainbow Road is.
It was released. Was Mario Kart Wii before? It was after Galaxy for sure.
Mario Kart Wii was a little after Galaxy because you got bonus data if you had Galaxy already.
That's true. Oh, and Rosalina was in the game. True.
Yes, and that's how you unlocked her.
Gotcha.
So like that, I mean, like, look, we made a whole episode on Mario Galaxy. I love the Mario Galaxy OST, and this is like heavily leaning into that. I think it's great, and it's not pulling melodies.
Yeah, it doesn't pull any like real referential material, but like the vibe is very Galaxy for sure.
Yeah, and it's also fast. Like, it's faster than most Galaxy songs in order to be a fitting racing game song. I think it hits on every level.
Who composed that track, because I wonder if it was someone who had something to do with the Galaxy soundtrack. That would be sick.
Oh, I'm sorry. The Mario Kart soundtracks are so varied that I didn't pull up the composers.
There's probably like 7,000 composers on that game alone.
Yeah,
it's hard to say.
Are.
And it would probably be hard to find out who specifically wrote that one.
Yeah, I want to shout out all of them. If you worked on a Mario Kart soundtrack, you are a legend. Congratulations. Unequivocally, you are a legend, for sure.
Yeah.
That's in exchange for not being able to shout you out individually. I'm sorry.
I think that, I'm sure they would be listening to this podcast.
It matters for me, okay? It doesn't matter for them. It matters for me.
Yeah, I wish I knew. That would be really sick.
Still, so that's my favorite Rainbow Road. Do you have a favorite Rainbow Road?
Well, probably, I mean, like I said, probably just N64. I think like the way that one's constructed.
The original N64?
I'll say yes, just because that was the first time it was introduced. I think the Mario Kart 8 version did a great job of elaborating on it, and a great job of I think if they just slapped the N64 one on Mario Kart 8, it wouldn't work at all. Like, it needs something a little bit grander. But the way it's stated in Mario Kart 64 is just perfect. It's really, really well placed.
Yeah, and that like train whistle, not train whistle, but like that very airy flute playing the melody, the MIDI flute.
It's very N64 space level, you know? You kind of get that vibe. But what I don't really have much to say about it, but the way that all the kind of Rainbow Road tracks follow a similar idea harmonically and melodically, like some of them kind of deviate, but a lot of them follow the same sort of harmonic material. You can hear musical kind of references, not even references, but influence through
even we being faster than the others, it's still following those very same types of harmonies and resolutions for sure.
A lot of the chord progressions are very similar, if not the same. It's really kind of cool way to have this kind of sense of continuity between the games, because there aren't really any other tracks that do that sort of thing, you know?
No, just Rainbow Road. Yeah.
Lovely. I love
Rainbow Road.
Yep.
I didn't actually have any versions of Rainbow Road in my top 10, though.
I did have.
Believe it or not.
Well, yeah, I had N64, but
I don't blame you. We could have been in my top 10 on a different day, I'm sure. Okay.
What is in your list that we haven't talked about?
Well,
Jack?
I'm going to bring up the very end of my top 10 that I could have put higher, but I felt obliged to put it only at the end, and that is Animal Crossing.
Okay.
I think the Animal Crossing stage. Do you know the gimmick behind it, Mackenzie?
The seasons.
Yeah. And what's interesting is that each season of that track also does have its own version of the music. And it's not just the instrumentation either. So the spring and autumn theme, they all go through the New Leaf main theme at the start, which makes sense because New Leaf was the newest kid on the block at that point.
Sure.
And the spring and autumn themes, which are composed, like they have different instrumentation, they both go through a version of the original Animal Crossing theme, you know, like the very first one for the N64, like dun 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 dun. That one.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so they go through that and have some iterations on it. It's interesting. And then the summer and winter themes, which are my favorites. The summer in particular. Winter is less of my favorite because it uses all the winter Christmas instruments.
Do you like sleigh bells, Jack?
I am not a huge fan of sleigh bells. I gotta admit, and they seem to think I love sleigh bells for some reason. So summer is probably my favorite, and that's because it elaborates on the New Leaf 7 p.m. theme, which I have always been of the opinion that of the Animal Crossing songs, New Leaf 7 p.m. is maybe the best one. It's super beautifully composed. It's a very low-key track. I think they did put it in Smash, and like it represents Animal Crossing super perfectly, and they arrange it really well for a racing game, because in the original, it's a very low-key, soothing track, right? It's playing right when the evening is hitting in New Leaf, and but the racing version just takes like the end chunk of it, the part that can most easily be adapted into a racing game, and uses it for it, and plays it right after the main New Leaf theme. So I think they just arranged that really, really intelligently. It's a reference to the source material without being like, a blatant, and now it's Zelda's Lullaby time,
Sure,
you know what I mean?
Right, of course. What I kind of want to ask you about this one is, do you think they did a good job of adapting it into a racing theme? Because I feel like that would be hard to do.
What I'll say is, as I was listening to the spring and autumn themes, which are the ones with the original Animal Crossing theme, I think those are probably a little too slow.
Okay.
When you're playing it in a racing theme, like when it hits the Animal Crossing proper theme section of that, it is a little plodding. It doesn't have the energy that you do want for a racing game. And like you could argue that it's Animal Crossing, so that's thematically appropriate. But I think the summer and winter versions do a much better job at that while using a track that was just as relaxing originally, right?
Sure.
So I think they could have gone more ham with it, if that makes sense. Like they could have made it more energetic. There's room in the composition to do that.
Just the fact that you've got 4 tracks of music for this one race
is already
so
very
cool.
impressive.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's great.
Yeah, for sure. And that's why I have it at my number 10, because it's a crossover track, so I don't want to put it that
Just
high.
Just obligatory number 10.
And I don't love the spring and autumn themes.
Sure.
But I do, like, the summer theme would be one of my favorite tracks, I think. And the winter theme is also good.
Sure.
So yeah, I'm a fan. They did a great job with that.
Yeah. So what I kind of want to bring up what I think is a good example of like kind of like a quintessential Mario Kart track, and that's DK Summit. I don't have a lot to say about it other than that's the one that, like, if I think in my head like, okay, got to think about Mario Kart Wii music, It's that one. It's just fast, light drums under like a nice like square like synth melody,
I can think of the drums and I cannot think of the melody, but I can hear those drums pounding away at like the instrumentation of it. But the melody doesn't come up for me.
Oh, yeah.
That's not at all the one I was thinking of. Oh, yeah, absolutely. That's for sure one of the standouts. Now that you've said that to me. Maybe I was thinking of Grumble Volcano instead for the
Grumble
soundtrack.
Volcano.
Grumble Volcano's okay. But you're right, DK Summit, that song in particular, is phenomenal. It's one of the standouts for the Wii, I think.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, it's hard to pick standouts for the Wii. Yeah, it is. It is that one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's definitely my favorite to play. They added...
Favorite track to play or favorite song to play on, like, piano?
Sorry. It's my favorite to play in the video game. I don't know.
I see.
Right. They did add it to Mario Kart 8 with one of the more recent passes. I don't think I've heard that yet. I've heard it because I've played it, but I don't remember really what they do. Sure, it's interesting. Maybe. Who knows?
For what it's worth, I really like that song in Mario Kart Wii. I think it's one of the stronger songs for sure.
Absolutely. That's why I say...
It's distinct while also not being crazy.
It feels iconic Mario Kart, Like, it definitely feels... I don't even know if it captures like a summit that well, but it's definitely just a fantastic like standard racing track, racetrack as in music, not like
I guess the actual track you're like going up a mountain in the snow. To jump off of that, I have a song in my number 2 that I would echo that sentiment for, that it feels just like a very simple standard racing track, but also like it does that just so perfectly that it doesn't need to be more, and that's Yoshi Circuit.
Which is that Wii?
I believe it's from the GameCube originally.
But it was remixed on Mario Kart 8, right?
In 8, I believe.
Yes,
I'm going to look this up actually just to make sure that I don't have my sources wrong.
It's from Double Dash, right?
Yoshi Circuit is from, let's see. It is from the Double Dash, yeah.
Okay.
So I did have that right. It is my second favorite song. And like
I don't think
part
I
of that
can
is that
think of it
it's
right now. But
it's
I believe
very
you.
simple, but like what I love about it is that it's jazzy, energetic, bombastic. It's like dun, 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 dun.
And it all came flooding back. I understand. Yes.
Dun, 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 dun,
That's absolutely,
dun, dun, dun,
like,
dun, dun, dun.
Key Mario Kart. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's like it's
1000%.
fundamental, and it's not just like I talked about how Mario Circuit feels like Mario Stadium rather feels like core to Mario Kart 8. Yoshi Circuit feels core to Mario Kart. You know what I mean?
Totally.
Like those sorts of bombastic, energetic, exciting tunes. Like Yoshi Circuit nails it perfectly.
There's something about the melody of that track too that's just so ingrained as the Mario Kart sound. I don't know what it is like theoretically, but it's
I think it's the syncopation, the slight pauses that they do, and like how they don't just like go all in with it, but like the jazzy like stops and starts like the dun dun dun. Like,
yeah.
They nail that feeling. It feels energetic, and it feels great to race to. And another low key thing that I like about it is that it also still feels like a Yoshi song.
Interesting.
It has the exact same, like, especially the 8 version that they made, has the exact same, like, orchestration, like, those trumpets and that almost squeaky sort of feeling that a lot of Yoshi songs have. In particular, I'm thinking, like, from Yoshi's Touch and Go in the DS is what springs to my mind. It has almost the exact same, like, instruments that game uses. And so the fact that it can simultaneously be perfect for Mario Kart and still be a good representation of a Yoshi song is
really
brilliant
sick
to me.
Yeah, no, I love that track. I think it's really good. It would probably be on here if I could think of it earlier. But man, yeah.
Yeah, I can understand why you wouldn't, because like you could argue that it's a little generic. But
I kind of skipped over it when I was constructing my list, I'll be honest. I was like, that one, it's probably fine.
I really like the GameCube original, but I love the 8 remix of it. I think they did a phenomenal job.
Yeah, I think maybe skipping over it because it was generic was a bit of an oversight, because like generic tracks in this kind of game are what makes the music Mario Kart. You know what I mean?
Yep, absolutely. They're like the
generic in an iconic kind of way.
Yeah, almost in a big, and yeah, Mario Stadium is generic in like a really professionally made big band sort of way. You know?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I am almost of the opinion that the unthemed songs are where the composers for Mario Kart shines. Maybe with the exceptions of Rainbow Road, because they really get to just like
unthemed as in like not tied to a character, or how do you mean?
Probably more like not the desert or ruin type songs, where they can just like, and like I'd say DK Summit falls into this too, where they just get to be like, I'm just gonna make an exciting track. And then the race designers are like, I'm also just going to make an exciting track.
Well, okay, so one that I think kind of falls into the trap of like theme and cliche that I have on, well, it's on my list. I'm not calling it a top 10. It's just the ones I wanted to talk about. Is Grumble Volcano. I think it's great. I think the music is good. I think the melodies are good, and I think some of the influences that it pulls from real world music are fantastic. But the first thing you hear is a sitar in like a dominant Phrygian kind of Middle Eastern sound.
Do I even identify that as volcano music? I think we talked about this earlier. I think it was in the Sword and Shield episode where like a lot of games will use those sorts of Middle Eastern sounds just as dangerous and foreign, right?
Yeah.
Like
I think if you take those harmonic kind of sounds and put it on like an Indian like tabla and like xylophone, then it's a volcano now. I think that's honestly I think that's what happens, and that's what they do in Grumble Volcano. Okay, so they use kind of like a low, maybe a marimba kind of thing. I think it's great. I think it sounds really good. I think it's just a little bit too cliche for my liking.
I understand that for sure.
Although the melodies like scale, while it is like that kind of cliche like Phrygian sound, it pulls a little bit. It almost makes me think of, I brought it up in Sword and Shield as well, a Javanese gamelan, which doesn't really make a whole lot of sense in this track, but I think it's in this
context.
Yeah, and it doesn't, because honestly, the reason I'm making that connection is because when I heard it in the fight against the Ruin. The Ruin Quartet in Scarlet Violet, I heard that part and I was like, that sounds like Grumble Volcano. Why? And it all kind of sounds like it pulls the same sort of melodic material, which I think is cool. But it doesn't have the same instrumentation, which it does in the Pokemon sound. So
yeah, and I think it sort of fits a little more for the Pokemon
encounters
as well.
I think putting it on like a xylophone is great for a Volcano. I think it's cool.
That's true. Yeah, I'd agree with that. I don't dislike Grumble Volcano. I don't have it on my list, but like
me neither.
It does the job
I
just
have
fine.
it kind of listed as a missed opportunity. You know, like I always get a little bit sad when like a place that's like a just like this is the volcano place. They don't do anything cool with it. They just play with like kind of this is what people have done in Hollywood to evoke this kind of sound. So let's just keep doing that, you know?
Right. Okay, we're actually starting to run a little long, so we got to get moving through this top 10. I didn't expect this from Mario Kart, but apparently we had a lot to say.
This happens every episode, man. We're like, oh god, what are we gonna say? And then we're like,
what
oh well,
are we even possibly gonna talk about? Oh damn it, we didn't mention Boy Base. Yeah. Okay.
Actually criminal that we didn't do that though.
We deserve to be shot. It's fine. We're past it now. Electrodrome. I quite like it. In terms of the Mario Kart 8 original tracks, I'm a big fan of Electrodrome.
It doesn't sound very Mario Kart-like, but also Electrodrome isn't a very Mario Kart-like level.
No, it's just sort of like they just wanted a rave techno dance number in there, and I think it works just fine. Yeah,
I'm happy.
I sort of don't have that much to say about it. It's just distinct from the rest of the stuff that's playing there. It fits the level really well, and it's a jam. What more do you want?
Yes, I agree. I think it's great.
Electrodrome. Boom. Electrodrome. Okay, that was a fast one. If we can burn through all of this top 10 like this.
Yeah, here's another fast one. This is another one. I almost chose this one as like the quintessential Mario Kart, but it's not quite so iconic. Is Moonview Highway. I don't know if you can pull that up in your brain at all.
I can't actually remember what that one sounds
What I
like
have in my notes is banger synth, banger bass. It kind of sounds like something that you would hear in like oh god, what's the anime called? The racing one.
Initial D.
Initial D. It almost sounds like something you'd hear in Initial D. It sounds almost Eurobeat. It has a lot more focus on synth than some of the other tracks do. So it's not all that. It's jazzy, but in a more kind of modern feel. So it has a really kind of energetic synth and bass going the whole time. And it just works really well for like a highway at night. I think it's great.
Weird. I don't associate those sounds necessarily with a highway, but I can see like Moonview Highway is a little more urban, right? Like,
absolutely. It's not like a highway like but rural at all. It's like in the middle of a city. Absolutely.
Yeah, Mackenzie and I live in like prairies, so to us a highway is like a big old stretch of nothing with nobody on it. But,
right.
Like,
I wouldn't score that music for like just like the middle of nowhere highway, but
yeah. But for the sort of setting they've got going on there, I can totally see it. Yeah.
Anyway, so that's that one.
Moonview Highway. Neat. I didn't have it clocked, but I don't think they added that to 8 either. So
they did actually in the most recent.
Was it recent?
Most recent pass. Yeah.
Oh, I see.
God, I still have to play that one actually. I gotta go do that.
I don't have Mario Kart 8, so you know. But I'm sure that it's fun.
I had two more on here, 3 more on here that I haven't brought up yet, but I don't have to bring all of them up.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a couple others on here. Moo Moo Meadows was on my soundtrack for sure.
Yeah.
But we've already gone through that. Cheese Land, sort of like, for being a GBA one that they just brought back, I feel like they just took the core melody of that and then just like went funky beyond all reason. Like,
nice. I love funky.
It's like I said, I don't mind it when it's unthemed, and you could say like, well, it's themed around cheese. Okay, buddy, how are you gonna make a soundtrack around cheese, huh? Well, what does cheese sound like? Tell me, I need to know.
And now we know.
And now we know what cheese sounds like. It sounds like this. I mean, you could say like cheese smells funky, so they went funky with this. Sure, that works.
Sure. Well, I think even just talking about the gameplay for a second, the way they adapt like the really retro tracks like GBA, SNES into the more modern games, really cool, really inventive sometimes, especially with Cheese Land. Like, because with some of the more modern games, if you remix it into a new game, you kind of have to take a lot of the core material and keep it unchanged to have you think of the same track. But with something like the GBA, where everything's like 2D,
you have to get a bit more abstract.
You have to, and you can, and you can get really inventive with it. I think it's really cool.
For sure, yeah. And so I feel like they sort of did the same thing with the soundtrack, where they're just like, we've got this very basic melody. Why don't we just like, we just give the sax player free reign. They can just go buck wild with it. And I don't know, they did a great job for it. Being free, letting these composers just like experiment and do whatever they want, I feel like yields the best results because it always sounds great.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, what else do you got on there?
Okay, so the one that I would like to talk about, if I have time for it, it would be Dragon Driftway. It's also...
that's one of the more distinct ones.
The reason that I like this one, and before I started putting this list together, I was like, I'm going to have Dragon Driftway on here because I like it. Yeah, hold on. I like it, but why do I like it? I know it's a bop. Why is it a bop? And I think it is because of how it's combined, and it's combined in a really kind of unconventional way.
What do you mean by combined?
Instrumentation.
Oh, like mixed and stuff, right?
Yeah. So, like you said, Erhu is like the main focus, I'd say. Like, it's the first time the melody is introduced is on Erhu. But how would you, like, orchestrate Erhu, right?
Around an Erhu, yeah.
What I wouldn't normally think to do would be to make it like a funk track, which is what it is if you listen to the background music.
That's pretty
so
true,
cool.
yeah.
Like, it's combining this, like, really traditional Chinese instrument with, like, American 70s, you know, like it's very cool. It's a great way to kind of use those traditional sounds in a racetrack, you know, and it definitely feels like a dragon, like as maybe stereotypical as that would be, you know. I think it's great. I think it's really a really good example of how to make a racetrack out of something like that.
And like a themed racetrack as well.
Yeah.
They could have gone more generic with it, and you could argue they went stereotypical. But
well, I mean, I think taking like the kind of funk surroundings, like the bass and the drums, like that's not typical. That's a really cool way to do that. With it. Yeah.
I am always a big advocate for like taking traditional cultural instruments and then surrounding it with stuff that it's not, traditionally surrounded with.
That's
interesting sounds.
Yeah, that's just how you get new ideas. For sure.
Exactly, and like deriving from places that aren't typically derived from. Everybody wins, right?
Yeah, I think Dragon Driftway is a perfect example for sure.
Yeah, and I want to throw Splatoon a bone because I've done nothing but deride it this whole time. Splatoon 3 is great with a lot of that stuff. Deep Cut, everything they do, Anarchy Rainbow is a perfect example of that. So if you want to win points in my book, Dragon Driftway did win points for that. It's not on my top 10, but I respect it. Combine traditional cultural instruments with new and interesting ways. I think it's great.
Very nice. All right, what do you got left?
The big one before I get to my number one, Big Blue. I said that I only put Animal Crossing at number 10 because it's like, a crossover track, so I didn't want to give it too many points, but Big Blue is number 3. Because, like, there are 2 F-Zero tracks in Mario Kart 8. One is Mute City and one is Big Blue. And in F-Zero, and in most remixes of them, I do prefer Mute City to Big Blue. I love Mute City a lot as a song, especially the version that Super Smash Bros. Brawl introduced is, like, maybe my favorite track from Brawl. I'm not a huge fan of it in this context because they are still going with like the big band sort of feeling, right? Maybe a little bit heavier on the electric guitar to give it that F-Zero feel. But I don't feel like Mute City works so well as a big band sort of track. Like the saxophone in particular feels a little, how do I put it? A little dry. Like, it's not doing the most interesting things that it could. So
it's kind of shoehorned in to make it more Mario Kart.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, the instrumentation is just there to be Mario Kart instead of doing interesting things with it. That being said...
It almost makes you think that, like, it might have been composed a little bit more independently, like, by someone that was just like, hey, take this F-Zero track and make it Mario Kart. Rather
these guys didn't care at all about F-Zero, and they're just like, okay, I'll adapt these sounds, these sounds into Mario Kart.
I mean, that's all speculation, of course. Don't want to disparage somebody by accident.
Regardless of whether it is what happened or not, it's kind of what it sounds like.
Sure.
So, and that's more or less why I'm not a huge fan of Mute City. However, I'll say Big Blue works really, really well in this style. Like, just the energetic nature of it works super well, because Mute City's a little more, like, soulful, and it's still energetic, don't get me wrong, but, like, the Brawl version that I really like, for example, really tones it down and gives it, like, those piano chords to really make the, not emotional beats hit, but the dramatic beats, at least. And in Big Blue is much more just like an energetic racetrack, right? It's happier, a little more fun, a little more upbeat, and when you're putting that in a big band sort of setting, that's like exactly what it's for, right? Yeah. And again, I really do like both Mute City and Big Blue in their default states, so to see a really faithful, well-situated orchestration of it, it just appeals to me.
Pulling from a different game, if it's done really well, absolutely.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with it, and especially because like it's not like you're slapping Big Blue and Mute City together and just trying to make a gross hybrid. They're both given space to breathe, which I do quite appreciate.
It's funny. I kind of actively avoided choosing the ones that were like pulled from other games, but like 4 of yours were.
No.
Three,
Only Animal Crossing and Big Blue are on my top 10.
Splatoon was like an honorable
I just wanted
mention.
to discuss Splatoon and Hyrule
right,
because
that's true.
Remember, I didn't like Urchin Underpass, Mackenzie.
Good point. Yeah, that's an interesting kind of. You don't have to talk about that in a lot of games. It's like Mario Kart and Smash Bros. Are the only ones that you have to consider like remixes from other games and how it's
faithfully
approached.
they can do it. Because if you're not careful, it can get like tacky and sort of forced.
Easily.
Like the Gusty Garden remix or the Good Egg Galaxy remix in Smash 4 that they added.
Yeah, after that episode, you showed it to me in person. I was like, what is this?
It's an affront against nature. Truly terrible. The composers would be rolling in their graves if they were dead.
I think they're all alive, hopefully.
When they die, this will make them roll in their graves. It's not going to be
They'll lower them into the coffin and just immediately start spinning.
Well, they're going to have regrets left on this world, right? So how are they going to rest in peace?
They have to destroy every copy of Smash Bros. Ultimate.
And Smash 4. And every CD that was sold of the soundtrack.
It was on the CD? Man, okay.
It's not pretty. Back to Mario Kart. So they avoid that for the most part with their remixes, which I appreciate. And again, even the ones I like less, Splatoon is... I'm not going to talk about it, but like Hyrule Field and Hyrule Circuit rather, Animal Crossing and F-Zero to varying degrees all pull off the transition pretty well, I think. Minus the Zelda's Lullaby part in Hyrule Circuit. That just makes me sad.
You got to let them have it sometimes.
Sometimes I know there's no getting around it. They're just gonna do it. I just sort of have to live with it.
So okay, I will say, of those left on my list, none of them I really have a lot to say about them. Other than that, I like them.
Sure, run through them quick.
The 2 remaining ones are Maple Treeway. I have it written on my notes.
I like Maple Treeway.
Just a groovy time, man. I don't really pay attention to it when I'm listening to it while playing, but like listening to it back, it's just like a groovy like beat
it's a fun time.
with some nice like simple beautiful synths. Good.
And I will say, I feel like some of this might be the Mario Kart Wii nostalgia talking.
Oh yeah, 1000%. Well, there are a lot more tracks in Mario Kart 8, and there's a disproportionate number of them that I like on my list that are from Wii. So
yeah.
In fact, the other one that I wanted to give like an honorable mention to here was Wario's Goldmine.
I thought about Wario's Goldmine, but I didn't put it on because I'm like, it's okay.
It sounds a bit silly, but the vibes are great. You know, it's like it's got whistle. It's got one of those like those things that like make like a really high pitched sound. I don't know what they're called. It's like a whistle, but not really.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
And then also just like banjo whistling.
Boy, it sure is miner music.
That's what I said. I have literally on my notes. I have oh boy, fast paced mining town. Let's go.
Even the oh boy.
Yeah.
Okay, well that's the
vibe.
Conclusion, I guess. Yep.
So that being said, I think my number 1 pick for all of the tracks,
the ones on your list,
it's on here, but I want to hear yours first because I don't think you've talked about it yet.
Sure, I haven't yet. I also did want to shout out, this isn't on my top 10, but it would be a crime if we didn't mention it. Waluigi Pinball's great.
I agree. I don't like the track very much.
Yeah, it's a little random, but the music is phenomenal. I am not a huge fan of the Mario Kart 8 remix that they used for Wario Stadium and the new Waluigi Pinball stage. They have it in there. I really like the DS original, and I especially like the Smash remix, but that's a little unfair to shout out. And the 8 remix is missing something. I feel like I'm not a big fan of the wavy synths they use in the 8 version. So, yeah, it's just me.
All right.
Okay. But I wanted to mention that because it's a very standout song from Mario Kart. Now, the song that I actually have as number 1 is the Bowser's Castle track from 8. I don't know if that's low-key or not, but, like... It to me, it represents everything good about Bowser's Castle music, both from Mario Kart and from the Mario series in general, because it's got like the very hard rock feel to it, like for example the Mario 64 Bowser theme, right? You know how that sounds, right? And at the same time, it's got this very great jazz undertone, sort of like his 3D World theme, right? And both of those combine in this track to just like make a great tune that you can jam to for sure as you're going through the track.
Yeah.
I guess I don't really have that much more to say about it, but
sometimes it boils down to like this is a great example of what it's trying to do.
Exactly.
You don't have to have a lot more to say about it other than that it's fantastic.
Doing
you know?
exactly, and yeah, it's sort of a themed track because it's a Bowser themed track, but they took the best parts of Bowser themes and then did something creative and unique with them.
That's
right?
the thing with Bowser themes is that they don't have to rely on cliche because they created the IP, you know?
Exactly.
Like they created, I mean, some of the cliches sure are just like any
Then again, they also created
villain's
Gusty
castle,
Garden,
you know?
but
Well, yeah. But that's not the same thing. They didn't take a melody that everyone loves and just throw it in there again, right? They did something. They made a new construction using what works for Bowser.
Using the ideas that define Bowser, not using just like a Bowser theme. Right?
Yeah.
They didn't just rip his
'Cause
64
really,
theme and slap it on.
Bowser doesn't have like one
theme.
set musical theme, which is maybe a good thing for this kind of thing.
When I think of like Bowser's definite theme in my brain, it's like the Superstar Saga theme that he gets when you're like on his airship. That's what means Bowser to me. But everybody's gonna have a different song that means Bowser to them.
Yeah, I mean,
so
like
what I think
from Galaxy or from 64.
Yeah,
like,
like
it's all different.
All
of those are different. Yeah.
Tones. Yeah, exactly.
That's
in like the
pretty
3D
sick.
world, the super jazzy beat. And so yeah, this Bowser's Castle theme does a great job of like representing everything Bowser.
Nice.
And when it does that, like I love Bowser themes. Most Bowser themes are some of my favorite tracks in their games. So why wouldn't I love this? You know what I mean?
For sure.
Yeah.
So
And that's my favorite song. But I do want to shout out again Yoshi Circuit. I feel like of the generic track type songs, they nail the feel of that one. Like, So I want to give that a shout out as like the best individual composed song. But Bowser's Castle is my favorite.
Right. Well, so like I said, I didn't really rank these, but God, if I had to assign one of them as like my favorite, it might be kind of like a basic pick, but the N64 Rainbow Road remix.
I don't blame you at all.
Probably like just the way it's reconstructed. Of course I talked about it earlier in the episode, but it's just phenomenal. I think it's a really, really good example of a lot of these. We were talking about kind of like how things were lifted from older tracks and remixed into the newer games. That's just the perfect example of how that was done, and I think it couldn't have been done better, honestly.
Oh, you're saying your overall favorite is the 8 remix of the N64 track?
It's interesting because I think I like the N64 one better, but for some reason, if I wanted to assign a favorite Mario Kart track,
you would give it to the 8
I would
remix?
give it to the 8 remix.
I mean, I don't blame you for that either. Like, the way they did it is creative and still retaining the beautiful essence of the core song.
Absolutely.
So, for sure, I understand it. It's one of the best examples of what reorchestration can do to an older song. When you still respect the source material, but you don't, like, over-worship it. You're willing to make changes for the better.
Absolutely. So, Jack, philosophical question for you.
Okay.
What do you think makes a racing track theme?
Energy. I think that there has to be some sort of energy flowing through here. You will never hear a low-key racing track because by definition, like, speed is the name of the game.
Sure.
Every track has to be going at pace to encourage you to think constantly on your feet, to make the turns you have to do, nail the feeling. I mean, that's what racing is all about, right? So
Do you think
you're
it's
never
possible
gonna hear.
to achieve an effective racing track with a slow piece of music?
I'm gonna say yes, because Mute City is that to some regard.
Okay.
From F-Zero, like, Mute City isn't a fast song, and that might be part of why the big band feel doesn't really work for it. Because in F-Zero, it still has like that pulsing bass, right? That still gives you that tempoed feeling. I don't think you can really get away from that entirely. But the main melody of Mute City is pretty slow and drawn out. I think it's possible.
The melodic and harmonic material are fairly slow, but if I'm remembering correctly, like the bass and the percussion go crazy, right? Like it goes fast. Like just by nature of being like a repeated like 16th note thing, like it's fast already.
Yeah, so maybe my answer would be no. I don't think you could
need
make
you need to have energy in the piece in
some part
way,
of the song.
and
That's
that
what
usually
defines a
comes
racing
from and in racing tracks that usually comes from tempo.
Much of the time, yeah. And a lot of that is also in many tracks that's also converted into the melody. You can do it. You can have a slower melody as well for these sorts of games, like Mute City proves, but most of the time you're going to have a fast melody, and at the very least you're going to have like percussive elements that are really
I was going to say, I
enforcing the
think the heart of it is the percussion and the rhythm section, right? If you have like a groovin' fast bass and drum, you're set essentially. Like you just got to build something good off of that.
Like even Zelda's Lullaby they take and make faster. The Splatack remix is like 1.5 times faster than the original as well, which, you know, whatever. They work with it. So when you're, and those sort of show just like when you are adapting something to be a racing game, it needs to be fast in some capacity. That's just the nature of it. Otherwise, it just won't fit.
Sure.
Just like how some tracks are better suited for a fighting game or like a management game, you have to suit your track to the environment. And in racing games, speed is the name of the game, as it should be.
All right, so my throat is starting to hurt because we've been recording for 2 hours. Jack, what should you listen to if you like Mario? Actually, you did that first last time, I'll say.
Okay, thank you. That gives me time to think.
So, well, I mean, in terms of game tracks, you could just find any old racing game, sure. I want to talk about the Japanese like fusion jazz group that actually our friend from next episode that'll come up later introduced me to. Cassiopeia.
Oh yeah.
Casiopea. Can't play it on the podcast for copyright issues, but just fantastic. And a lot of those. A lot of the songs actually gave me weirdly Mario Kart vibes. I don't like something about the way the groove is set up, the way the drums and the bass move. It gives me some of the similar energy, especially in the more fast-paced songs. That's what I would say. Give those guys a listen.
Okay, sure. I can understand that. And this is also maybe sort of a cop-out answer, but I will say, like, in terms of soundtracks that really remind me of Mario Kart, and in particular Mario Kart 8, the Super Mario 3D World soundtrack is the most big band of the modern 3D Marios. So, like, if you want to find those particular sounds that are present in stuff like Mario Circuit, even in the reorchestration of, like, Yoshi Circuit, like I said before, the 3D World soundtrack has variety, but it also really has that big band feel to almost every track. So if that sort of jazzy, exciting, but still like melodically present sound, if you want that, 3D World is the place to go. I am a big fan of that soundtrack as well.
Sure.
Like Galaxy is more ostentatious and grand
when
it wants
work
to.
For Mario Kart. It doesn't give me the same feeling at all. No.
And like we said, Rainbow Road Wii sort of does, but even that goes in a different direction.
Well, and that's a very specific track too.
Right. If you want the Mario Kart 8 sound, 3D World is the place where you're going to get it.
All right. Yeah, I feel that.
All right. Well, because you started in what games that you should go if you like this, I'll start with what I've been listening to. I have lately been playing, like I said last time, a lot of roguelikes. Roguelikes are sort of my comfort food of games. And Risk of Rain 2 is a game that is a standout in terms of roguelike music. Not necessarily roguelike music design. I pointed out in the boss episode that sometimes the music can sort of overlap in awkward ways that don't let it all properly resolve. But the individual tracks themselves are some of the most listenable music, I think, in roguelikes.
Well, and you talked about like the levels themselves would like escalate in a really cool way. Not even considering the bosses' music themselves. Like the escalation of the music works really well, right? Yeah,
exactly. Like as you go through, it all builds beautifully. And I think like part of that is really good for the design of the game, how you're constantly racing against the clock. But it also just makes for a really, really fun listening experience. Like the songs are just constantly building on themselves and elaborating and getting grander and grander until they usually have a big climax. It's just gorgeous. And then like they elaborate on that a little bit, and almost every track from Risk of Rain 2 is phenomenal. But I want to give a special shout out to They Should Be Dead, I think it's called, or They Might As Well Be Dead is the track.
I think we put that in the boss episode as background music for when you were talking about it, but yes.
I haven't gotten quite to that part yet, but yes, They Might As Well Be Dead, probably my favorite track in the soundtrack, and they added it in the recent DLC, so like, congratulations, they're only getting better, it seems like.
Nice.
Yeah,
well,
Risk of Rain 2, great.
I, again, haven't been playing a lot of games. I said last episode that I was playing Hollow Knight, still am playing Hollow Knight, but I have been listening to, I'm just going back, like I said a few episodes ago, I just have like kind of a few different soundtracks that I just go back to listening to sometimes, and one of those is the soundtrack for Night in the Woods. It's just, I don't want to say easy listening, but it like the whole game is set in this old coal mining town in the Rust Belt, which is like kind of down on its luck. Like the jobs are leaving, there's not really any money to be found in mining anymore, so you kind of see what's happening to this small town as it kind of like falls into the new kind of age, right?
Yeah.
But the music, it really captures that kind of small, like, Pennsylvania town feel in a way that it's really hard to explain. I like
wistful sorts of sounds?
Sort of, but nostalgic as well, because not to get into it, because we're going to do an episode on this one day.
One day we will do an episode of Night in the Woods. It is scheduled.
But the main character is someone who dropped out of university, who had a bad experience and came back home, right? Like, she went to university in this big city, so she comes back to this place that's not fitting her anymore. You know?
It's not the same place she
go.
left.
Yeah, exactly. You go back home to find this comfort that you had when you were a kid, but you're like your friends working at a store instead of having time to like play with you or something, right? Like, it's not the same environment. So it really captures that kind of nostalgia in a really, really beautiful
the nostalgia
way.
that you can never get back.
Yeah, it's sad, but great music. Love listening to it.
Yeah, I mean, if you can listen to it on its own, then that's double points. Okay,
all right,
sweet.
Man.
Next time on Stages of Sound, what are we going to be doing, Mackenzie?
We are going to
or
be
rather,
doing...
expand that "we" a little bit.
Yeah, we are teaming up.
Don't take that out of context.
With our good friend who's coming on to talk about a game that he enjoys, which is Metroid Prime 3. Metroid Prime 1. Sorry.
Metroid Prime 1, just the first one. Look, I love Metroid Prime 3 soundtrack as much as the next guy, but these soundtracks are long. We can't combine all of them. We might do separate episodes on all of them. Let's see how these go.
And it's going to be a fun little time because our friend has quite a lot of knowledge on this game. He's played it on many times, I'm sure. You know Metroid Prime
I've played Metroid Prime 3 only, but I have listened to the Prime 1 and 2 soundtracks, and surely,
I love the Prime 3 they soundtrack. Like bounce off each other, similar kind of themes.
All the same composers, I believe.
I have never played a Metroid Prime game, so that'll be fun.
Experiences will vary.
I will go in with an open mind and
Mackenzie, prepare
brain.
yourself. Prepare yourself to be an audience surrogate. There you go.
That perfect.
Ask all the obvious questions.
Sounds good. I'm ready.
All right, everybody. With that said, audience, please listen to other places that we are. Is what I was going to say. We are on Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, various other things that Mackenzie will elaborate because I've forgotten.
Just if you watch anywhere you get podcasts, we're there. Except Stitcher,
but especially the place where you're getting your podcasts. Like, if you want it anywhere, get it there. Who are we to tell you where to get your podcast? Like, seriously,
if you like podcasts, go to your favorite podcast store and
buy it.
And buy it. No, you can't
buy the podcast. You can't do that.
Yeah, announcement. We're coming out with a Stages of Sound CD.
The greatest hits, and it's all of them. All of our hits are the greatest. We have 5 hits so far. What's not to love?
Yeah, disclaimer: we're not doing this. We're actually doing it. It's a vinyl press, but it'll take a little bit longer.
I mean, then it's got value as a collector's edition item, right? So vinyl is always in style. Anyway,
man, I only listen to my podcasts on vinyl.
On vinyl, oh my god, could you imagine? Anyway, that's it for us. We're out of here.
Exit soundstage right.
Exit soundstage right. Bada bing, bada boom. Whoa! Yeah, baby.
Oh man.
There we go. Right.
I need to think of more fun things to do with that outro, man.
You don't. You really don't.
No,
trust
I do.
me.
It's so fun, man.
The more you think of it, the worse it's going to get. Just stop.
Make sure to follow us on Twitter too, because then you can follow us.
We're out already.
Make sure you can follow us on Twitter, and if you follow us on Twitter, you can know when we post episodes. All right, see you later. Bye.